Have you ever walked into a test with a feeling of dread, that pit that's gurgling in your stomach that says, hey, I don't know if I'm going to do very well? Maybe you have test anxiety, or maybe you just didn't study. But if you have test anxiety, there's a way to get over it. Take more tests, right? You can also do things that, to help yourself out. Have a little something that you say, some little mantra that you say, I know this stuff, I've studied well, I can do this. Those kind of things will help you as well. But nothing beats practice. So, welcome back to Education with Miyoshi. I want to talk a little bit about competency tests today. Competency is really just skill, and when you have competence in something, that means you're skillful at it. And I have these things called competency tests in my class. What they are is, in my engineering classes, they're models and drawings that they do in the class period, and in programming they are writing code by hand. So you're writing code by hand, and you have to figure out, you have to think, what is it going to work? You're making models and drawings on the software package we're using. We use SolidWorks, and you're wondering, am I doing it right? Did I read the drawing correctly that I'm making the model from? Well, if you do them right, if you do them over and over again, you will have confidence in them. Which is why I let my students know what the tests are ahead of time. I let them practice. I let them memorize it if they need to, or whatever they need to do if they want to practice over and over again. But I make sure, especially with the software folks, I make sure they know how to write code by hand. Because if you can write code by hand and you can make it think about code in your head without having a compiler there, you're going to be a much better coder. Besides that, you might have if you become a software designer, for the software folks, if you become a software engineer, software designer, you may have an interview one day where they make you write code on the board. That's right. And if you have to write code on the board, then what better way to have done than to know you have confidence because you've done it before. You've written code in my class, you've written code by hand, you've written with a piece of paper and pencil, you've even written on a board. Whatever the case might be, you've had the practice. So hopefully that gurgling in your stomach is not because you're nervous about knowing the stuff. Maybe you're just nervous about being in front of people. So hopefully that helps a little bit about test anxiety, but mostly I want to just talk about that those competency tests, the testing of your skill. And like I said, the way I do that is I make people do models and drawings in a class period or a couple class periods, and I make people write code on the board to show that they know what they're doing. So tests aren't that big a deal, especially if you know what's going to be on the test beforehand, and especially if you practice them over and over and over again. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Education with Miyoshi.